Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us for as the first breakout rooms kick off for evokeAG. Yes, I've spent a lot of time in Agritech. I've worked with startups, with events like evokeAG. I've worked in startups, and now I run a farming systems group in southern New South Wales and northeast Victoria with a great team down there that do a heap of trialling of new technologies, land management strategies, new practices, trying to support farmers understand whether something is going to make them more money, save them time, or save them money. And so we've got a lot of Agritechs in the room, and we've got other farmers in the room that are coming to events like this to be able to see what's on the horizon, see what's going to have an impact in their businesses. And so for this panel, we've invited two producers, one from a corporate innovation background and another that's a sixth generation farmer. And so I'm going to invite Grant Sims and our friend Brooke Sawyer up onto the stage. And so I'll preface this by saying that these two farmers and farm innovators are people that I've harassed before to be able to trial things on farm, annoyed until that they would put a strip trial in, learned an enormous amount in terms of, so that's what a farmer needs to see before they'll buy something off you. Yeah, your report's a little bit heavier than the report I was going to do for you. But just a little bit of a background. So we've got Brooke Sawyer here, based out of Moree and Pallamalawa area, so that's northern New South Wales, who runs one of Australia's largest commercial trial farms with 640 hectares of trialling, some really mad skills in precision ag, which is very cool with some of the reports and data that's coming out of trials. And we've got Grant Sims, who's a sixth generation farmer from Lockington in Victoria, who's one of Australia's leading regen farmers, but is one of the smartest farmers I've seen in running really high net profit margins by adopting technologies. And so maybe just throw to you, Brooke, just to give a bit of background around what we do with the Bulla Pure Network.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pip. Great to be here. Bulla is, the really short version is we're kind of a bit like a vertically integrated business, but we're kind of not. We have three arms to our business, so we connect land together. We manage about 26,500 hectares, and we spread that land out, and we are expanding our footprint to cover different parts of the country, and we do that to spread climate risk. And then all the offtake from those farms comes back through the Pure network, and we connect that directly to end users. So everything we do on farm is very much what we call like a demand-driven type model. If we make a decision to do something different on farm, it is generally because it's what our end users might want us to do. So we're very focused on sustainability metrics. We have our own, what we call, I guess, a bit of a brand of regenerative agriculture, which we can touch on a bit later.
Excellent. And Simsy?
Yep. So yeah, I suppose for me, like you're saying, sixth generation farmer, I look at my role here as just looking after the land for the next ones to come. So a lot of the things we do is trying to find ways to be more efficient in what we do. And then, whilst improving our greatest asset, our soil, because at the end of it, that sort of underpins everything for us. Like we've got to be, more profitable. We're looking at that. Cost of production nowadays is getting high, wages, land prices, all that. But so if we can be more efficient in what we do while improving our soil to buffer, that resilience in, that's sort of what drives us on a lot of things we do.
So we've got hundreds of Agritech companies and also very established, corporate companies that are producing new technologies. It's endless, really, what you could play with in terms of, I call them toys, but they're really fun and very sophisticated Agritech tools. What are you looking for when you're trying to either address sustainability, profitability, save time, make it easier in terms of workforce on farms? How do you find these technologies, and what stands out to you when you're screening the hundreds of them of, oh yeah, I'm going to put some time into that?
Look, for us, we're very much driven by two key things. We don't own the land that we manage, so it is all owned by third-party landowners. So we're very much driven by profitability, 100%. So the greatest way to increase our profitability is reduce our inputs and maximise our yields. So having said that, we are just a big enough machine to have inefficiencies. So we look for things that, one, I guess, are going to help us to increase our profitability, definitely increase our efficiency, particularly around, I guess, our resource management, not just inputs, but also people and how we manage and manage our team to do effective on-ground decisions. And then, of course, our demand-driven piece is very much around sustainability and developing key metrics that help us to tell a story that showcase to our end users why you want to do business with us. And that is also helping them to meet their goals and their objectives as well. So how we weed people out, I've been working with ag tech companies for about 15 years, and so my bullshit radar is very tuned in. And sorry to be a little crass about that, but it's a tough space for any ag tech company to be in today, because unfortunately there were probably hundreds before you that laid a bit of a pathway of over-promising and under-delivering, and so we're a little bit scathing. And a little while ago, somebody quoted me, and it was supposed to be a little in jest, and it'll be the second swear word you hear out of me, and then it'll be no more. But they said, what is one piece of advice that you give to a startup? And I said, every farmer will think that you're full of shit, straight off the bat. So there'll be a healthy dose of skepticism. And so for me, it's the things that we look for in terms of technology is we'll go searching, and then we'll look for companies that are genuine. They don't ever make me feel like I've done the wrong thing, and that by working with them that I could suddenly do the right thing. And they've got a few runs on the board. I'm not asking them to have $1 million of investment, but they've got some science behind them and some proven results. So,
great. Simsy.
Yeah, I'd sort of go along exactly with all that. Farmers are very busy now, and we can get many different people coming in, try this, try that, and I suppose understanding the farmers, their program, their context and where they're at. Say we're cropping farmers, we've got busy times of the year of sowing and harvest. Well, they're probably good times to avoid, because a lot of times they don't even want to talk to you because we're just too busy. But coming in those areas where I'm a bit quieter. And then same thing, like for us, like obviously if we can save time, money, profitability, but for us, how does it fit ecologically within our system? For me, I'm mindful of our soil, our asset, and handing it on, looking after that for the next generation. So I will trade short-term profitability for longevity. If I can do something that's going to increase the quality of our soil and the quality of the produce we're growing, because we are food growers, then that's a sort of a win-win. Are we improving the environment? It's another win. Is it going to make us more profitable? These are all little checklists that we go off. So it's not for me just about, I'm not interested in things, there's products out there that are designed to, treat a symptom short-term and make you some money. We want to actually prevent that thing from happening, go to the cause, and that's a really good investment for us in our farm.
And so, as agri-tech companies or even researchers, you get very aware of who the early adopting farmers are, or those who like to play with particular toys. Everyone knows that you're a leading regen farmer, so if we think there's anything related to carbon or sustainability, Simsy will get hit up for it. And so, what's one thing that you would like to see, or a piece of advice, I suppose, for, we've got hundreds of agri-tech companies here that, they've got some really great value propositions. What's the easiest way to get cut through with both of you, with the plethora of emails and, approaches that you get around collaborating with technology companies?
I suppose events like this is good, puts on the radar, and like you say, going to farmers that are, you know, in every region, there's always someone that's maybe a leader or an innovator, and you know, they're probably good ones to start with, because if they get on board, you know, other people are going to follow. For me, when we are looking at trialling some of these things, whether it be products or whatever, it's always like, especially if we're broad acre and we've got a lot of things to do in a short window of time, execution is key. You know, time management, because, you know, we could have a rain event that we could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars at harvest if we haven't, you know, executed harvest efficiently, and same with sowing. And so one way with, you know, looking at trials is, you know, we could sort of set aside a piece of land and then, you know, be compensated for that, and you guys just do it, and then it doesn't interrupt our program. We can just go. That's one way. Or another way we've done, you know, different trials with different companies is sort of us doing the trial, the paddock trial. But for us, like if we're doing 2 hectares or 10 hectares, that's more of a pain than just doing 50 or 100. So I suppose for us, like if our machine equipment that we're sowing will do 65 hectares, say in one fill, we don't want to be doing 10 hectares stop. You know, we want to fill it up, whatever it is in the trial, that we can do one whole bin and then empty that, then change to the next one, just so we're more efficient with our time. So it's sort of, you know, sitting down, having the talk with the farmers, how can we do this so that you're executing your program and we're not a hindrance on you guys, is very important.
Yeah, and to follow on from that as well, you know, we obviously work with lots and lots of different new, you know, companies. We're a big trial farm, essentially, so we're always trialling something, and we're fortunate that we do have a dedicated trial farm, and we have a dedicated person to look after it. But anyway, the one big thing that is always probably our challenge is the commercial viability of some of the ag tech. And don't get me wrong, we love being able to kind of say, hey, have you thought about doing this? Because in reality, we don't have that capacity to put on, you know, paint every seed with a seed treatment. Or in reality, we're just going to pour it down here and it's going to go up the chute and about 70% of the seed's going to get coated. Or in reality, our machine is too big, or we don't have the draft, or what have you. So, you know, use those connections that you can with growers and or agronomists, and find out, I guess, how your product actually fits in with the commercial reality of farming. And the scale thing is different for different people, so make sure you're sort of choosing the right sort of farmer that's relevant to your product. Yeah, and I guess the only other thing that really resonates with me is that build yourself a bit of a brand, because I don't know, this really annoys me, Pip, and tell me if I'm wrong, or Grant, but we're really good at finding the information that we need to find. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
So I kind of, there's this painted picture that you kind of have to be the driving force of, you know, charging into a grower's life and selling them your pipe dream. And be honest with you, if your technology, somebody said this earlier, so I apologise if I'm stealing somebody else's words, but if your technology is relevant to a farmer, we will find you. I can assure you. We will come and find you, and we will ask you. And we don't want to be told that, you know, don't give us the sales pitch because we've already kind of found you. So, but if you are in those early stages, then look for the multiplier effect. So build yourself a really good brand. I walked around this morning and I was like, you know what? I do not know what any one of those companies does by their name. And that should probably excite me and make me want to go and find out. But I was like, I don't know, I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is. But I had no inclination to go and ask. Do you know what I mean? So build that brand, build yourself, because if you build a good brand, we'll come and find you if your technology is relevant to the challenges that we have.
I'm just going to add, like something we were talking earlier, like probably having that really good communication with the farmer of, you know, what your program is and what they want to do about going on their paddocks, things like that. Because I think, you know, understanding, like I know cropping farmers that have got, say, controlled traffic systems where all their implements run on certain tram lines, and I know blokes that they won't even let you drive their ute on the paddock. And if you get caught on there, like you probably better pack your bags and get out of there, because they're not going to be happy. So. And then the same thing, I've had guys going out in the field to do some spraying, and then they're ringing me going, there's 2 blokes in there with a net, they're jumping up and down in your crop, you know, and I've got no idea what they're doing, but, you know, it's just sort of having that communication as well, just so everyone's on the same page.
Good point.
That's why you're always branded when you go on farm, so everyone knows exactly why you're there. So that sort of brings us and probably sets us up really nicely in terms of it is a real journey with your producers. And so I've sort of worked out that if something works, that's 25% of the journey. Getting it to work on farm and making it a commercial proposition for large-scale farming, and so your total addressable market when you're talking to investors, you know, that's 75% of the journey. And I've rocked up to both of your farms and you've basically told me my value proposition, right? And so like, oh God, I didn't even know that. Oh, that's how that works. Okay, well, we're going to need a new product for that to fix that problem with this product, you know. And so you know, there's enormous value from the experience that we get with collaborating with farmers, and you've got to be listening to farmers to always get it. And so we're going to invite some stalwarts that I know have worked with farmers a lot, with two very different sort of technology areas and different experiences. And so I'd like to welcome Tim and Daniela. Daniela is from AgScent, which is some leading technology in animal welfare, safety and livestock. And we've got Tim Neal, who's one of Australia's leading farm data experts and has been actually developing solutions at an industry and farm level for how long now, Tim?
Too long.
Too long, yeah. We'll say a couple of decades, yeah. And so you've both been trialling different types of technology, which has a different validation and different pathway to get it to market, to get it accepted by and used and valued by farmers. And so, Daniela, can you talk us through, I suppose, some of your trialling background and potentially where you've seen enormous value actually working closer with farmers in that innovation process?
Thanks, Pip. I think, so from AgScent, we are a farmer-founded company, and so I think that has put us in quite a different position. So our technology was actually thought of whilst actually standing crush side, and so I think one of the uniquenesses in some of the ag tech that we have is the ability to be really solving on-ground problems. And I think for us in particular, that ability to develop our products from a farmer perspective or from an actual real life problem has allowed us to, I guess, interact a lot more regularly with producers and from an earlier stage. And so we really have developed the tech starting on ground, and then we've gone and had research collaborations and partnerships, and we use the highest, I guess, research rigor in what we're actually developing. So the tech development, we're not missing out on that research rigor, but we're always developing that tech, making sure that it can be functional and operational on farm. As you were saying, Pip, 20%, what was it, 30% of the...
I estimate 25%.
25% is actually then getting that tech to work. Well, that other percentage is getting that tech to work on farm. And I think doing that early in the process of tech development is really, really an important step because it allows you to also engage quite early with the producers and the farmers that ultimately are going to adopt your product.
And Tim, as a digital and data product, how do you go about, I suppose, engaging with farmers? And you might have to go back a little while, Tim. But how did you, I suppose, build the confidence in your farmer clients and actually work out how your skill set could add value to a farm business?
Yeah, I guess I had the luxury of starting a long time ago in a more advisory role. So when you're in an advisory role, well, I was told first up when I started my first job was shut your mouth and open your ears. And I went, well, that's pretty rude, but I've taken that piece of advice and stuck with it, because if you listen and take it in, you're much more able to respond to the needs that you're doing. And we rarely ask customers what they really want, to be honest. We actually just go and immerse and understand, and I think that's the best way of doing it. And you sort of lead the industry that way. You're not looking what's happening today, but what's happening in the future. And so our journey started with advisory, moving into, I guess, one-on-one advice to multiple advice to then saying, well, we need to scale this. How do we scale a software company? We know that software is a limiting factor. So our data farm is really about scalability. So we've now got nearly 50,000 farms using our platform from 50 countries, but most of them are still in Australia. And we've done that with no sales or marketing team. And it's exactly what Brooks said. You build your personal brand first. You build the trust in in agriculture, trust is a very big thing. So you build your personal brand, you build trust, you build your knowledge and understanding of what the industry needs. Then you build your brand profile around the company. And that's really quite a simple way of doing it.
And so farmers and people running farm businesses, they are the experts in how your product will deliver ROI. And so I'd call myself a generalist, but I, have a lot of phoner friends, half of them, on this stage, in terms of how does this work, how will it make money, I don't understand what's happening here. And so had a lot of investment in terms of farmer time, technology experts, technical experts, researchers' time, trying to explain things and pull them together. What do you think the most valuable thing that if you can think back to, those early stage conversations with farmers when you started collaborating and innovating together, what was one of the key learnings that really stuck with you that kind of you're like, I've got this, I can work with farmers on developing these tech pieces?
I think the first thing is you've got to go in without any assumptions. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to go in knowing that also you're not the expert in their systems. They are the experts. And I think we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but it's really a co-design. And so being open to being informed by them, ultimately, because ultimately your tech's going to fit into their systems. The minute we start to come in and disrespect that, then I think that's when there's the pushback or the distrust between ag techs and producers. And so I think as long as you're going in understanding that, and then understand that you might speak to one producer today and the value proposition will be mostly around productivity, say, and then you might speak to another producer on the same product, but their value proposition is really about, for us, say, animal welfare. And just understanding those nuances and that not everyone is going to respond the same to what you're proposing.
Just drawing on that, Daniela, when you're in a startup, even if you were working it, but next level when you're the founder, right, it is your life, it's very consuming. There's no 9 to 5 in starting a business, no 9 to 5 in farming either. And so you're probably putting some of the most passionate people together and be like, work together, make this amazing, increase our GDP, if you will, and so what's some ways that I suppose you can do that co-design well that, you can mesh together rather than, come at a stalemate or, farmers just walking away from the table?
I think one of the key points is not to overpromise. And so be very upfront when you have those first engagements on where you are and what you want to achieve, but equally just ask what they want to achieve too from that kind of relationship and partnership. So just really, I think when we sometimes talk to producers, we've got to take off that sales hat and treat them as an equal in that development process. Let them be part of your product development rather than you do your product development and then impose the outcomes on them.
Do you think that there's a way to, I suppose, get that safe space? Because often you're walking on farm and you've got a sales target, you've got ambitions to fill, So how do you actually create that co-design, I suppose, relationship in a commercial environment?
I think it's also about trying to pick the right partners and fit for your company as well. So, and I think it's also nice to recognise that not everyone is going to be that fit. And so you will have multiple conversations. And I think one of the things is not to be disheartened by some of those conversations if they don't go the way that you want, but learn from that and then evolve and then have the next conversation. And so I think really we as an industry need to make more of an effort to develop the tech with producers early. I think I've now said that several times. I can't sort of stress that enough. I think that really needs to be part of the early conversations. We need to have a clear idea, yes, on our value proposition, but understand that that might change.
I think your sales targets point is absolutely spot on, because if you're going in there with that attitude, you're going to fail big time. If you're not going in with customer focus, good luck. And I tell my investors, I said, I'm going to under-promise and over-deliver, and they absolutely hate that, right? They want to hear mass sales targets. I don't even think about that stuff. Like, I don't even have sales targets, because that's the problem. If you don't focus on the customer, then and you're focusing on revenue like that, then you're destined to fail. I hate to say it. I mean, you're just going to be continually chasing and be unhappy. Whereas let the market follow. If you're listening to customers, you'll always win. It's not really that complicated, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, farmers kind of teach you how to sell your own product, right? And so if you don't have those conversations and get it, I suppose, up to the level that, and your investors, right? And so, you know, Brooke, when we're talking things about at scale, you know, we've got really big farms in Australia, and so it might work up to a small plot trial, or it might work in a microcosm of your research environment, but, you know, trying to convince your boss to write a $250,000 check, I'll learn a little bit more about how to work with farmers after that. So talk us through, how do we build that confidence? You know, it's something that you can learn, but, you know, what's your advice in terms of this is how I'd want to work with you, and show me this and I'll be more confident?
Yeah, I guess those conversations, I love those conversations, to be honest with you, because we're kind of down to the nitty-gritty part, right? And it's that I feel really excited about the prospect, and it's okay, because, you know what, we're going to fail a few times, and I'm okay with that, because it's the process of what we learn along the way. And we've taken that approach to our entire trial farm. It's like, you know, I get up there in front of 300 other agronomists who are eyeballing me like, what rubbish is she going to give us today? And I'll quite happily say, we're doing this. We know it's not going to work, right? But we're going to learn a lot along the way, and we do feel like we just need to get on a bus and start something. And so I think that if you can have that, you know, when you're working with us, it's okay to show your warts. Do you know what I mean? No one expects you to be perfect, and nobody expects your product to be perfect. And, you know, like, I've worked with Tim for far too long. You know, we've had so many honest and frank conversations with each other, and Tim and I have this really fabulous relationship that we probably see each other about every 2 years, and it's like nothing's really changed, and we kind of continue on. And every now and then I'll ring Tim and he'll go, yeah, so can you get this for me, or can you, a bit like you, can you do a favour for me? So I think if you know, for us, the big thing is that willingness to work with us, that willingness to be open and listen, and openness, I guess, to fail a little bit with us, because we kind of expect that you're not going to be perfect. We might have a few hiccups, and that's okay, but it's that willingness, I guess, to evolve with us, and work with us is the biggest take-home message from us. We have, you know, 10 million goals going on all at once, and we don't expect you to be able to meet all of them. But we are just hoping that you will be able to create some efficiency, some productivity, improve on our legacy, help us meet our metrics, help us tell our story. And yeah, you don't have to solve the world's problems, I don't think.
You can solve one, that's great.
But solving one or working towards helping us solve one is that's what we look for the most.
Yeah, excellent. Simsy, what do you want to see next time we rock up to your front?
Yeah, I think, like, sort of all being covered, like, there's a lot of, you know, risk and reward potentially in farming, and you know, the margins are tight, they can be, but I suppose, like we were talking earlier, having that bit of skin in the game where they're, we're working together, and say there's sharing a bit of the risk maybe in that, because if we're already doing something that we know that's going to work, well, to do change, there can be a risk in that, but to be understanding of all that, and a bit of skin in the game, whether they're donating product or go sharing costs in some of that, it's sort of can help a lot there as well.
Well, and I think that's a good thing to remember. If you've got a good value proposition, farmers want it to work, even if it's not quite working yet. If they can see the potential in it, you've given both heaps of time in terms of, okay, well, you probably need to look at this. And so, can we get a show of hands who's farmers in this room?
Wow.
Yeah. So you're going to be pretty hot property at this event. And so what about agritechs or researchers or tech developers? Yeah, so it's about half and half, so that's nice. That will make the farmers less exhausted, I guess. So I suppose in terms of understanding who your customers are, understanding what they want, you're at a good spot here, because just not any farmers rocking up to evokeAG in Brisbane. They are here looking for solutions. We've got any other farming systems groups or agros in the room? Yeah. Yes. So they're also tech scouting on behalf of farmers, and they're running trials. And so having those collaborative conversations, Tim, how do you get the best out of 5 minutes with a farmer?
Oh, it's all about focusing on the customer. It's pretty simple. If you're immersing yourself in that environment, that's the best way to do it, is to focus on the customer. And I think we've got to look at what really drives people to change. The pain of doing the same thing is sort of less than the pain of change is what keeps people doing the same thing. So if we can change either cost, convenience, compliance or capacity, I think the 4 Cs really ring home for me. Is if we can help people manage their lives easier, better, quicker, and we're delivering instant value, then you'll get an airing. I mean, funnily enough, every farmer is a human being. They have the same drivers as everyone does. If you've got a complicated app on your phone, you quickly delete it. Why is farming any different? And I see so many things come out that are so complicated, but we must think that the agriculture industry needs complication, not simplicity. And every other application we have on our phone is simple. So I think we've got to just keep that whole theme going, is that we've got to get this to help people on one of those key metrics.
Daniela, what's your advice for the Agritechs in the room that have got some of Australia's earliest adopting farmers walking around their stalls today?
Go grab a coffee and have a chat. Listen to what they have to say, and really hear what they're saying rather than just assuming and walking away.
And, sometimes it's okay to walk away. Cropping and, mixed enterprises is what I'm looking for. I think your aquaculture solutions are excellent. It's no judgment. It's just that there's not any fit there. And so it's a bit like speed dating,
Yeah. I think, though, there is so much that we can learn from other sectors within agriculture. So within the livestock industry, there's so much we can learn, say, from cropping or even from horticulture. And so sometimes we tend to be a bit, I'm going to disagree a little bit with it, but we tend to be a little bit closed off and tend to just purely focus just on a small industry. And I think there's so much learnings that we can take from different parts of the sector and different technology and different approaches to farming that, though it might not typically apply, but we could take some of those concepts and apply it in different areas.
Well, we like to transfer a fair bit of tech.
We do. Well, we're using space tech, so...
Yeah, well, it's largely at the back of your data farming platform, isn't it? A lot of that comes from all of our mining industries. So, what is getting you guys excited at the moment in terms of, I hope I see someone that's doing this here, or if I see this number in your technical pack, that's going to get me, pretty much wanting to sit down and buy you the coffee?
I'm really boring. My answer has been the same for the last 2 years, Pip, and I still haven't moved away from this, and it's AI. So as a bit of a data freak, who loves to look at data and analyse data. And in a previous life to the trial farm, my world consisted on looking at data and seeking opportunities for improvement. And so I just see the endless possibilities that AI can propose for most agricultural systems, that when we can bring pieces of information together that fill the knowledge gaps that we kind of largely ignore, or we don't always acknowledge that they're there, and when we're actively making decisions on farm, whether or not, and all of our decisions are quite complex, wouldn't you say? Seems to you like they're not just one-dimensional, that we will do one thing and there will be a flow-on effect, and then all of a sudden the weather changes, and that's just a whole nother level of complexity to the outcomes. And so I think that when we can bring pieces of data together that really kind of give us the contextual information that allows us to make the most informed decisions that give us short-term, medium-term, long-term impact, implications, etc. That is the exciting part for me. And just FYI for the agros in the room, this is not about replacing agronomists. It's never about replacing the grower. And it's not about taking or creating absolutely automated farms. I still cringe at that thing that I heard, it was about 7 years ago, to a conference and go, woohoo, so we created a whole crop, not one person stood on that farm. And then I had another girl go, you'll be able to drink mojitos, have feet up on the balcony and manage your entire farm from the Gold Coast. I don't know about you, Cindy, but I quite enjoy working on the land, and I don't actually want to live at the Gold Coast, and I don't like mojitos. So we want to be on the land. We want to create legacy for the future. So this is, for me, AI is about those impactful decisions that gives us the confidence to, like Tim said, actually do something different, because it's easier to just keep doing what we do.
Yeah, I suppose for me too, like in a lot of, like we do a lot of research and trials on our own farm and been involved in different grower groups, and some of the time, we can be dangled a carrot, and it's that linear thinking where if we do this, we're going to get this outcome. But then it's having the systems thinking approach to, well, what, by doing this and creating this outcome, what's the flow-on effect? Like you're just saying, like that could create another problem that now we've got to spend more money there and we're chasing our tail, and when you sit back and look at it all. So, I'm sort of excited about trying to, look at things in a system and, stuff around it. We're working with, biology and plants and what their roles are in the soil, because, we try and manipulate things but if we just mimic nature, everything's designed to do it perfectly. It's usually we're the ones that create the problem. So, looking at things like plants, how they can solubilise or liberate different minerals, suppress different diseases, looking at that sort of thing, and, working in some of the biological, it's pretty mind-blowing now. Like I say, moisture changes, temperature changes, and then everything changes in the soil. And there's stuff we're playing around with, digesting phosphorus and calcium and fixing nitrogen with microbes, rather than us having to go and buy and throw that on there. So, yeah, lots of things.
Oh, excellent. Well, I want everyone to give our very patient farmers and our very experienced Agritechs a round of applause for the kick-off breakout the session today. And you are probably going to get quite a few of the Agritech companies come and find you now, but I'm sure that there's the same words of wisdom that you've been willing to share with the other 50 of us that knocked on your door beforehand. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Pip.